So the OnePlus Nord CE 5G, where the CE stands for Core Edition, is a bit of a curious plastic slab. It's 80 quid cheaper than the standard OnePlus Nord mid-range smartphone from last year, and as you would expect, that does mean some spec sacrifices such as a less refined camera and a lesser Snapdragon as well. But this Core Edition model does actually improve on the original OnePlus Nord in a couple of key areas as well, most notably with longer battery life and a tasty bit of headphone jack action down below. So precisely how hard will the OnePlus Nord CE 5G make your nipples? Well, that basically depends on your own personal priorities, but the Nord CE 5G is up against some very stiff mid-range competition. And that of course includes the excellent Poco F3, which emerged earlier in 2021, and the likes of Oppo's fresh new A74 5G. So I've had the OnePlus Nord CE 5G stuffed to my shorts for the last week or so, using it as my full-time smartphone. So here's my in-depth review, and for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now the first area where OnePlus has shaved a few quid off for this Core Edition is the design. While the first Nord phone was clad in super tough Gorilla Glass, the CE 5G sports a bog standard plastic arse, and there's no Gorilla action up front either. Thankfully you do at least get a pre-installed screen protector slapped on there, though mine's starting to look a little bit shabby already after just a week, and OnePlus has, as usual, bundled a condom case in there with the OnePlus Nord CE 5G as well to keep it nice and pristine. You'll definitely want to slap that on as soon as you get it, especially as it's actually rather stunning as far as these prophylactic cases go. Woof! My OnePlus Nord CE's posterior is ever so slightly scuffed in spots after a week of play, so that case will help to keep the placky back looking pristine. And this also thankfully deals with the issue of that glossy surface sucking up every last bit of finger grease until it looks about as appealing as a Wetherspoon sausage. The plastic design does mean that this OnePlus phone is a bit lighter than the standard Nord, but it's also impressively skinny too, although one-handed use is rather tricky. You've still got no dedicated one-handed mode in OxygenOS, so it's 2 mitts all the way. And also this black model is, to be perfectly frank, rather boring. You'll definitely want to go for that bright blue model instead, which is a lot more interesting to look at unless you're really into your melancholic tech. And yeah, the fact that you don't get that iconic OnePlus alert slider still feels rather odd here on the OnePlus Nord CE 5G as well. So just like other budget OnePlus handsets, it feels more like a knockoff than the genuine article. No real complaints here with the software side of things though, besides that missing one-handed help. Android 11 looks and feels pleasingly stock with the OxygenOS 11 overlay, especially if you opt to replace the OnePlus shelf with that traditional notifications panel. I do really like that OnePlus shelf, but the fact that the OnePlus Nord CE 5G is a bit of a big bugger means I really do like to have the notifications panel swiped down from anywhere on screen instead. It just wins out. And it's great to see OnePlus making serious commitments when it comes to keeping its smartphones updated as well, helped by the fact that it only releases a handful each year, unlike some rivals. So you got 2 years of guaranteed OS updates and 3 years of security updates here on the Nord CE 5G from right now. And that's the kind of guarantee you don't get from some rivals like Xiaomi and Motorola. And yeah, the first couple of days I was using the OnePlus Nord CE 5G, I did notice a couple of funny little software quirks creeping in there. Like for instance, I would swipe up to access the recent apps and that just wouldn't work at all. But then there was a big update landed about sort of 4 or 5 days ago, and that seemed to clear all of those bugs out of the system. It's been absolutely flawless since then. And as always, I love all the bonus bits that OxygenOS brings to Android. It's just like a huge dollop of garlic and chili sauce on top of a really juicy doner. Fair play, that canvas wallpaper effort is a bit random, but the ambient display, which is now properly always on when the phone hibernates, is a winner, with some great options to choose from. Now standard Zen mode is, as always, a cracker when you just want to chuck on a bit of the footy, read a book, play a game, whatever, and remain completely undisturbed. And there are lots of other bits packed in here, such as the gaming mode, which I'll hit on in a bit. Now you can choose between either 128 or 256 gigs of UFS 2.1 storage, and almost all of that is available for your own apps. OnePlus thankfully didn't load up the Nord CE 5G with a heap of crapware like TikTok and LinkedIn and all that rubbish. It's just a real shame that OnePlus couldn't add in memory card support here in the OnePlus Nord CE 5G, which is something that a lot of mid-range 5G rivals do offer. Let's have a gander at that 6.43-inch AMOLED screen, which is one of the best you'll find on a smartphone at this price point, and very similar to the original Nord's panel as well. The Full HD Plus resolution means crisp visuals, while the strong brightness and those wide viewing angles means you'll comfortably be able to see whatever's going on when you're out and about. You've got HDR10 support, which extends to Netflix and other streaming services, so you can expect pleasing contrast and natural looking colours, although you can opt for more vivid hues if that's your bag instead. Definitely great when kicking back with some hyper-violent anime action. It's a 90Hz panel, so once again super smooth when you're swishing through your desktops, playing with supported apps and the like, and you've got a plethora of eye comfort modes, reader modes and all that stuff to stop your peepers from exploding when you're watching YouTube at 2 AM. And yeah, the basic mono speaker action ain't exactly particularly great, but who gives a badger's taint when you got that headphone jack slapped down there below, and the Bluetooth support as well has been pretty much flawless. I did experience a little bit of cutout the first time I went out and about with my Bluetooth headphones, but again that problem seems to have been rectified. You've got LDAC support, which means that dedicated headphones pump crystal clear audio into your lug holes with zero lag or stumbles. No real troubles on the performance either, so OnePlus has gone for the slightly lesser Snapdragon 750G chipset for the Core Edition model, but of course that is a very popular platform for mid-range 5G smartphones, also found in the likes of Xiaomi's Mi 10T Lite and Samsung's Galaxy A52 5G. And while my review model had a frankly ludicrous 12 gigs of RAM stuffed inside, you can also grab it in slightly more sedate 6 or 8 gig flavors. I had no bother at all from this 12 gig model. Unsurprisingly, you can do everything you want, no worries, including proper side-by-side multitasking. And yet, gaming ain't an issue either. The Nord CE 5G does struggle with hardcore titles like Genshin Impact, of course, but popular fare like PUBG and Call of Duty play beautifully, helped by that dedicated gaming mode which can juggle those resources in the background. And you've got loads of other great features on here as well, including a recording tool that actually buffers the previous 30 seconds of action, so if you unexpectedly pull off a great bit of skill, you can save and share that moment of glory online. And yes, with that Snapdragon 750G chipset, you do of course still have a tasty bit of 5G action. However, it is definitely worth mentioning that for around the same sort of price point as this, just a little smidge more at the moment, you can get the excellent Poco F3 smartphone, which boasts the Snapdragon 870 chipset for a much stronger performance overall. So certainly if you are a gamer who's going to be interested in playing the latest titles for the next couple of years, the likes of Genshin Impact, the really hardcore stuff, then you might want to look at that one instead. But I've got to say that any smartphone addict should definitely be tempted to grab the Nord CE 5G ahead of the original Nord because of the bigger battery stuffed inside. That 4,500 mAh capacity battery, I had high hopes for it, but it really outperformed even my expectations as well. I found that even the most hardcore intensive days I would get through with plenty of gas left in the tank. You usually get around sort of 7 to 8 hours of screen on time from a full charge, and that is with audio streaming in the background and other shenanigans too. You've also got Warp Charge 30T Plus support as well, which basically means plug it in for around sort of 20-25 minutes and you'll get a half charge, which is perfect for if you're about to bugger off for an evening out or something. Although sadly here in Blighty, with those COVID restrictions still in place, looks like I might have to hold on a little bit longer before resuming my wild and crazy clubbing lifestyle. Smashing back the apple sours like an absolute boss and then destroying the club toilets with bright green vomit like a complete demon. You've also got that brilliant adaptive charging support, so you can happily leave the Nord CE 5G plugged in all night long and it'll trickle charge straight 100% just before you rise from your slumber. Now let's have a gander at that camera tech, which has to be said is pretty basic. OnePlus has been decidedly tight-lipped about the actual sensor hardware that it's using here in the OnePlus Nord CE 5G for that 64 megapixel primary shooter. But whatever it is, it's merely adequate for your everyday shooter needs as long as you're careful. The CE 5G is certainly capable of spaffing out a good looking pic, but you really have to work for it. Don't get too close to your subject or you'll usually end up with a blurry mess as the lens struggles to focus. You'll definitely want to avoid complicated lighting as well, as you'll get blown out results and weak colour reproduction, or else your subjects will often appear quite murky against a brighter backdrop. Indoor shots usually came out fine without much grain or blur during movement, and OnePlus's night mode does also help out in low light, capturing stronger detail while also tempering those brighter elements. You've also got an 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle shooter slapped here on the back of the Nord CE 5G, and this basically acts exactly the same as every other wide-angle snapper on a mid-range 5G handset. You'll notice the usual bit of distortion around the edges of the frame, plus colours are much warmer than those captured by the primary lens, although this does actually help to counter saturation on those bright sunshiny days. And last up, you've got a simple basic 2 megapixel mono lens as well, nothing swish, but at least it's not a bloody macro effort. Video results are very similar to the photo results. You can shoot up to 4K resolution footage at 30 frames per second with that same hazy look in bright daylight. Detail levels are respectable, however, so your footage will look decent when chucked onto a big screen, while audio comes through loud and clear from all angles. And OnePlus's usual impressive image stabilization definitely holds up well when you're moving about. Flip to the front and you'll be working with a 16 megapixel selfie shooter, and no surprises that it's also limited in less than stellar light. I occasionally appeared even paler than I do in real life, believe it or not, They'll find a sheltered spot and the results are usually okay, if not exactly pant-wettingly marvellous. Portrait mode is occasionally a little bit bulky, and in low light things do get murky, but well, you get the general picture by now, right? So alright, there's my full, frank, final review of the OnePlus Nord CE 5G after using it as my full-time smartphone for a week. And yeah, it doesn't boast the impeccable performance of that Poco F3, but it is very well spec'd for the price point. It's great to see that longer battery life, the headphone jack as well. It's a shame that OnePlus couldn't also reinstate a bit of micro SD memory card action, and then it really would be a very solid package indeed. But anyway, that's what I think. It'd be great to hear your own personal thoughts down in the comments below. Are you tempted by the OnePlus Nord CE 5G? Yay or nay? Be great to hear why indeed, and please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all the usual YouTube shenanigans, and have yourselves a brilliant rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.